Hey guys, Kyrios here, and today we're going to go over the best beginner or standard banner 5 stars in the game. Now, this is completely up to chance, especially if you're only playing one playthrough on who you're going to pull on the beginner banner and who you're going to get lucky on some of the free summons you're going to get on the beginner banner, which, by the way, you do get a guaranteed at 300, but it would take you over 2 years as a free-to-play to possibly get that. So good luck. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Let's get started. All right, guys, welcome on in. I don't really like doing tier lists anymore. They're so subjective, and you know, everyone's opinion is just, you know, crap, even mine. But I do want to tell you that there have been some updates for the live version that's going to happen as we go into 1.0, and there's been some updates in the latest closed beta. So some of these characters have shifted, but not by much. So let's go ahead and just get it started. We're going to start with Bronya, and I'm just going to start with the top of the list. She's an S+. Now, she did get slightly nerfed, and let's go ahead and explain why she's really good. One, she is one of the best supports in the game. She has a skill that advances forward the actions of the person she skills on as a buff by 100%, so they get a free turn, increases their damage by upwards of 79% for 1 turn. Absolutely amazing. She's very skill hungry, so you have to kind of build a team around her, and ideally a team of a DPS that doesn't have to use skills every turn as well. But you should watch our team building video for that one, which may or may not be out. Anyways, I digress. Now, it's really the ultimate. It increases the attack of all allies by 64% and increases the crit damage equal to 17% of Bronya's crit damage plus whatever for 2 turns. Absolutely the most cracked ultimate in the game, and it's 110 energy. And on top of it, I'm not going to go in full detail of why we break it down, but her traces do give her 100% crit, so she's kind of like a sub DPS and a support at the same time. So that's why she's insanely cracked. Now, what really made her cracked, and she was recently nerfed, is because you used to be able to cast a skill on herself, and you still can, but you're no longer going to get that advance forward, because you used to just be able to advance forward yourself over and over again to give yourself energy to keep the ultimate up 100% of the time. It was beyond ridiculous. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, next up on the list, we do have Balu. Now, there's not a whole lot of healers in the game right now. I mean, you have March 7th, who's kind of a shielding healer, but kind of needs some adjacent shielders as well. And you do have Natasha, who is also a healer. But Balu is really the only healer you have. So you're going to run Natasha or you're going to run Balu in most of the end game content when you need to bring a healer. And the best part about Balu is that she just does a lot of healing. So she'll do a lot of auto attacking and be able to get you a lot of skills. There's nothing really to write home about on her skill. She just does normal healing on an ally, a single ally. And then her ultimate, which is 100 energy, which is absolutely amazing, heals all allies for 20% of Balu's max HP and invigorates them, which gives them a whole bunch of extra bonuses on top of that. And you can see here from the talent, when invigorated, heals the ally for an extra amount. And the best part is once per battle, when an ally is knocked down, you can instantly res them. Chi-Chi, 6-star Chi-Chi, but this is at 0 Eidolon. Absolutely amazing. Great change. I just want to say we're getting into the part that we get to the A+ and A-. I do want to point out that every character on the standard banner is really good. There's no one that really falls outside the scope. They did a really good job of balancing, but once again, some are just better than others. All right, well, next up on the list, we do have Himiko, and she is an A+, and she may actually be an S-. Now, I do want to point out that in the closed beta, she was an A-. Now, the reason I'm pointing her there is that we just don't fully know where she's going to fall, but she did recently get a buff according to the patch notes, where previously her basic attacks would burn the target or have an 80% chance to burn the target, which was good, extra damage. But now they changed it to her attacks have a chance to burn the target, which means that should include her skill and her ultimate to be able to do more burn damage. And if that's the case, and that actually is a pretty good percentage, she actually may be a lot higher on the list to do a lot more AoE damage. But we're going to keep her here because we just don't fully know until the live server happens. Now, Himiko, and if you have Bronya on top of that, you just won the mommy team. Yes, you did. But speaking of Himiko, she has a basic attack, does fire damage. Her skill attacks a single enemy, and then also hits the adjacent enemies for X amount of damage. So it's effectively AoE, but upwards of 3 targets. And then her ultimate, which is 120 energy, calls down a rain of fire on the sky. Now, what makes her really great is that she does recover 10 energy for every enemy defeated. So when you're doing your dailies, or you're just farming XP, or you're trying to get different materials like gear farming or anything like that, and they bring like 4 or 5 enemies at a time, and you just bring her in and she just decimates it, so pretty much just auto the whole thing herself before any of your other characters can attack. Now, her bread and butter is actually her talent. Now, if any weakness is broken, whether it's by her or another character, she gets a stack, and after 3 stacks, she essentially does an AoE swipe. She gets a free attack every single time there's a shield break. So that's what makes her really nutty if you're got a team that's just cracking shields constantly with multiple enemies. All right, that brings us up to the 4th character, which is Welt. Now, I know there's a lot of Welt mains out there that are probably super mad at me right now, but I do want to point out that Welt also got a buff in the most recent patch notes, but we don't know how to interpret that buff. So he could be an A+, he could be an S-. It's hard to tell, but essentially his AoE has been changed that allows either himself or his whole party to do extra damage when the targets have been marked by his ultimate. Now, if it's the whole party, he's going to be cracked. He's going to move up a lot higher on the list. I mean, he'll be like S- probably, maybe even higher. But if it's just himself, he'll probably move up to A+. But as he was in the closed beta, this is where he would fall. And I love Welt. Like, he's got great designs, great ultimates, great skills. Absolutely love him. Welt's kit is pretty basic across the board. He has a skill that bounces, that'll attack random enemies. It'll slash 3 times and has a chance to reduce the enemy speed by 10%. I wish it was 20%. 10% just doesn't seem like enough. And his ultimate will all do damage to all enemies. And there's a 100% base chance for enemies hit by this to be imprisoned. And imprisoned enemies have their actions delayed by an additional or have their actions delayed and then have their speed reduced by 10%. Now, I can't remember if this is actually stacked from his skill to his ultimate. I don't think it is, but if it is, I guess that is the 20% that we're looking for. Now, speaking of Eidolons, unfortunately, E1 seems to be required for Welt, where you have to use his ultimate ability. It'll enhance his other abilities so he can do more damage on his basic and skill. It seems pretty important, especially with the 80% or 50% modifier on those abilities. So unfortunately, E1 is really where you're going to need to get Welt to get him up a little bit higher on that tier list. And without his E1, that's why he's where he's at. All right, 𝙀𝙑. I actually put him pretty high on the list. He is S-. He could be S+, but S- depending on your use case. And I don't want to get into some spoilers, but there is another good tank that I don't want to give you spoilers for if you haven't played it, but you'll find out as we go through it in some future videos. But 𝙀𝙑 has a lot working for him. One, his skill effectively does damage and has a chance to freeze the target. Freezing targets is absolutely amazing in this game. Delays their entire turn compared to just slowing them down or breaking them or anything like that. So this is a really good thing where they can't take actions. At any time that an enemy can't take an action, that's pretty crucial. And then his ultimate ability will put a shield on all the allies, depending on equal to his defense or percentage of his defense. Shielding is king in this game as well. If you can't bring a healer, you gotta bring a shielder. And you better hope that shielder can make some pretty fat shields to keep your team alive. And the shield lasts for 3 turns. The other thing to love about 𝙀𝙑 is that his animations are amazing and his talent is amazing, where effectively he can dodge a bullet once per battle. So if you have Balu and 𝙀𝙑 in the same party, you pretty much have an unkillable team. Now, you might not be doing any damage, but you have an unkillable team, effectively. All right, next brings us up to Clara. Laura Clough. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Next, start over. Next brings us up to Clara. Now, Clara is actually, in my opinion, an S tier unit, but in practicality, I think she falls a little bit lower, and that's mainly due to 𝙀𝙓. And I know we're not talking about 4 stars on this video, but 𝙀𝙓 is a 4-star. It's got great Eidolons, it's got a great kit, and is a physical damage dealer. And Clara's a physical damage dealer. And yeah, So that's the problem, is that a 4-star is really going to outshine her to an extent, unless you can break down some eidolons. Now, there's nothing bad not to like here. She does physical damage to, she's got an AoE physical damage on her skill, and her ultimate ability effectively gives her more defense, allows her to do more damage for Svarog. I'm going to say Svarog. Gives more damage to Svarog, and effectively what happens is that Svarog is a counter mechanic, so if she gets hit X amount of times, or she attacks X amount of times, the counters will go up, and effectively he'll attack. And the fact that when you ultimate, it makes it so if anyone in your team gets hit, those counters go up. So there's a lot to love about this character that can do potentially a lot of damage. I'm just saying it's just a lot easier to build Xusheng to do the same physical damage. But Xusheng is single target, Clara's AoE to an extent, so not really the same boat. But if that's who you pull, you've still got a great, I mean, all these units are great, right? All right, so that brings us to her eidolons, and unfortunately E1 is almost absolutely needed for her. Otherwise you got to play this weird gambling act, and I didn't talk about it before, but this is the big con, is that when using Clara's skill, it will not remove mark of counter on the enemy. So when you use a skill, typically it'll remove mark of counter that you get from ultimating or just in general, and that's what causes Svarog to counter whenever she's hit. But if you're skilling on her constantly, it's going to reduce the amount of damage he does because you're removing that. So you have to like ultimate, basic skill, sometimes other skill, and then just basic. And it gets very confusing without the E1. And E1 is kind of needed, and that's why she falls a little bit lower. Next up on the list comes Yangqing, and we're going to put him in an A+. Now, unfortunately, you can just build Xusheng, as we talked about, which is already an S tier 4-star unit as your primary DPS, and would get way outclassed by 𝙀𝙓𝙋𝘼𝙉𝘿, but we're not going to put her on the list because she's not part of the beginner banner. We'll talk about her in a different video. She's cracked. She's insane. She's absolutely insane. But Yangqing is very complicated, but does a lot of damage. So just looking through his kit real quick, he has a single target skill that allows him to do damage and activate his empathetic sword for 1 turn. We'll get into that in a second. And then his ultimate ability essentially does a huge hit that increases his crit rate, and it does additional crit damage by an extra blah 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 for 54% for 1 turn. That deals extra ice damage. Yeah. So no matter what, you got to do skill into ultimate. Ideally, don't do it the other way around. And then so what really makes him is this edge companion, which is his talent. When the empathetic link is active, Yangqing is less likely to be attacked, increases his crit rate, increases his crit damage. After he attacks, there's the 62% chance to do a follow-up attack. Follow-up attacks are cool. Nothing wrong with that. Does extra damage, has a better chance of freezing the target for 1 turn. Frozen targets, absolutely amazing. But there's just a lot to juggle with him, unfortunately. All right, guys, that's all I got. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about this tier list. Let me know if you think about the takes. Good luck on the beginner banner. It should take you roughly about 3 hours to maybe pity that with the bonuses they give you. And good luck to everyone that are running multiple accounts to try and get their waifu or husbando. I do wish you a lot of luck. I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy, and fist bump from me to you.